guys! Today we're going to continue reading Maroo of the Winter Caves. We stopped in chapter 3 where Maroo and Otak were running up a slope, and they heard some very strange noise, and they were trying to find out what it was. And now we're going to start chapter 4, but before that, I would like you to pause this video and go get colored pencils and paper, preferably the paper that you had the notes from chapter 2 and 3. The same paper, okay? So you're going to continue taking notes and drawing. If you don't know where it is, no problem. You can start with a new piece of paper. So pause this video and go get your material. Chapter 4, Wild Dog. Otak went first because he had the spare. He cast about for the direction of the whimpering. It was blunt on the wind and hard to place, and for a long time it stopped altogether. Then they both heard it again, near at hand, coming from some rocks just ahead of them. Maroo squinted against the bright light bouncing off the snow. Otak was a dark, moving blur. It hurt her eyes to look at him. He moved cautiously. She saw him stop and signal to her to come. Can you imagine? Are you picturing this? Otak, like very quiet. He's trying to look what it is, and he's doing this. He was leaning on a low rock. They both peered over it. On the far side lay a wild she-dog, dead. Her flank was ripped open. Beside her, a puppy with an injured foreleg whimpered pathetically and nuzzled at her teats. The prints of the dog pack led away from the two in their patch of blood-trampled snow. The puppy saw the children and cringed, snarling, its yellow eyes dilated with fear. Can you imagine the little puppy so afraid? But it could not move. They saw that it would soon die, if not from cold and hunger, then from attacks by eagles or other carnivores. Maroo wondered what had happened. Perhaps the mother had died defending her pup. She crept softly toward the puppy, followed by Otak. The puppy tried to scramble away, holding up its legs, but collapsed panting. It groaned fearfully. The children whispered together, "What killed her?" So now I would like you to pause this video and write, what do you think killed the dog? What do you think killed the wild dog? And you can also pause and draw this image of the little pup afraid. Maybe a bear? Perhaps, but she looks as if she might have been gored. The puppy will die if we leave it. It might die anyway without its mother. No, it must have been wind. They both fell silent, thinking. Maroo said, "Perhaps we could take it back to the camp?" Maybe. She had put the thoughts of both of them into words. "The grown-ups will be angry," Otak said. "They will tell us to drive it away." Maroo guessed he was right. After all, what use was a dog? Dogs were rivals of people, and a sick one would take precious food. Yet, she knew that people had sometimes tamed dogs. There was a man from the Blue Lake tribe who had one. She had seen it at the autumn gathering last year, wearing a leather collar and following him around as if he were its pack leader. The man took the dog with him when he went hunting. Can you imagine? That would be a nice dog, hunting with the man. It would be awesome to take a dog to help you hunt. Many people thought that meant crazy to give food and shelter to a dog. Because, it's not nowadays, it's many, many years ago when they didn't have houses, when they didn't have supermarkets, so they had to hunt to survive. So food was not as abundant as today. But Maroo had noticed how the dog loved the man and watched for him and rushed joyfully to meet him when he had been away. Tentatively, she put out a hand to stroke the puppy. It showed its gums and snarled with yellow, pointed teeth. She dared not touch the injured leg. "I think I could bandage it," she said, "but he won't let me." Otak rummaged in the bag hanging from his belt and brought out the leather mittens he wore in cold weather. "I could hold him," he said. "He'll bite through those. Let me try." Maroo looked in her own bag. She carried strips of soft leather for binding wounds. To clean the wound, she melted some snow in her hand. And then imagine her melting the snow. "Now," she said. Otak got behind the puppy. He put one arm around his body and held its head with the other mittened hand, leaving the forepaw dangling. The puppy struggled fiercely, and Otak nearly lost his grip. "He's strong!" he exclaimed. "Can you hold him?" "I think so." Otak held on, wincing as the puppy's teeth pierced his mittens, while Maroo gently cleaned the bloody wound. She had to force herself to tend the leg. The pain was so great that the puppy's whole body jerked at every touch. And she hated the feeling that she was hurting him. I would hate too. I love dogs. Do you have dogs? So now I would like you to pause this video and answer this question. If you have ever had dogs and if your dog was injured, what did you do to help your dog? Otak was restraining the dog bravely. Quickly, she began binding the wound. When it was done, she knotted another strip of hide and made a collar with a lead. She slipped the collar over the dog's head, and his eyes rolled in terror. Can you imagine how much pain he had? He freed his muzzle from Otak's hand and twisted his head around, trying to bite off the strange thing. "I wish we had food for him," said Maroo. "There is meat at the camp, but will they let him eat? We can't leave him now." "No." So now I would like you to pause the video and answer this question. Do you think the people, they would let them feed the dog with the meat that was still left at the camp? What do you think? What's your opinion? Maroo put on her own mittens and they took turns carrying the fierce little creature back to the woodland. With difficulty, they began climbing down the steep hillside. Maroo took the dog, winding the lead several times around her wrist and holding on grimly. Otak went down quickly on his own, and she heard his high-pitched voice describing to the others what had happened, and the disapproving lower tones of the women. Can you imagine? Why do you think they disapproved? Now I would like you to pause this video and write down, why do you think the women disapproved that they are taking the dog? When Maroo arrived, clutching the dog, the two women were already telling Otak that he could not keep it. Maroo talked about the man from the Blue Lake tribe, but Old Mother was not impressed. "Perhaps in the caves, in the winter, it might be possible," she conceded, "but not now, when we are on the move." What does she mean when she says we are on the move? Can you pause the video and write down what she means? Maroo seized on that. Perhaps he'll soon learn to run again, she said. He could stay with us and help us hunt and follow us when we go back to the caves. Old Mother sighed and shook her head. But the cat said, "Put him down, Maroo. See if he can walk." Maroo set the puppy down gently. He ran a little way, with the bad leg held stiffly off the ground, but soon he stopped and began his high-pitched whimpering. "The leg will mend," Tikek said. "Maroo has bandaged it well." "And he's just a puppy," Otak agreed eagerly. "He'll be easy to tame." Tikek squatted down and held out her hand and called softly to the dog. He stared with wild eyes but did not try to move away. "He's hungry," Maroo said, turning pleading eyes to Old Mother. "There is plenty of food in summer," Tikek admitted. Maroo saw that she now had her mother on her side and felt hopeful. Tikek was submissive, content to be led by the old woman and the man. But when she truly wanted something, she usually got her way. "Can we try to tame him?" Maroo begged, and Otak and Nimai joined in. "Please, can we try?" "I don't know what the man will say," Old Mother said, shaking her head. The children jumped with glee. "Take him back to the camp. Arag can decide." Maroo was jubilant. She knew that Arag would be guided by Old Mother. And Old Mother had half-heartedly agreed. Of course, the elders might object, but the family would not come under their leadership again until the autumn, and by that time surely the dog would be tame. When they returned to the camp, the first thing they noticed was the hut, almost finished. The men had cut willow branches, which they had set into the base, bending them over, crisscrossing them to make a low-domed building. Smaller branches had been moved in and out between the main stems. They saw the men sitting on stones by the stream. Their barbed harpoons and several large salmon lay beside them. Now I would like you to pause the video and draw this image of the men with their barbed harpoons and several large salmon laying beside them. Otak ran to his father, explaining his disappointment. "I wanted to fish. Why didn't you wait for me?" Arag mimicked Otak's sulky face. "Another time, little hunter." Before Otak could protest, Maroo was there with the puppy. Both men jumped up. "What's this?" Everyone began explaining at once. "Can we keep him?" the children begged. Vorka looked at Arag anxiously. "He will eat a lot. And what will the elders say?" Arag shrugged. He was trying to touch the puppy in Maroo's arms, but the sharp teeth snapped at him. Maroo could see that her father was fascinated. The puppy growled. Arag growled back. "Argh!" The puppy barked furiously. "Woof, woof!" "Don't," said Maroo. "You're making him cross." Arag laughed. "He's a fierce one." "Can he stay?" "Yes," said Arag. "He can stay." Now I want you to pause this video and tell me, are you surprised that Arag let the kids keep the dog? "And now," said Old Mother, "we must finish the hut before we eat. It will soon be dark, but put the puppy down, Maroo, and fetch the hides." Maroo tied the dog's leg to a tree. They all helped to stretch hides across the willow framework of the hut. and tie them in place. Soon it was done. The men fetched big stones and used them to wedge the base firmly. The small round house crouched under the rock wall, too low to be battered by the wind. Old Mother lit the fire while Tikek gutted the fish and prepared vegetables. Maroo brought water to the puppy in a bone bowl and begged a bit of raw deer meat from her mother. She chopped the meat small, and the puppy ate ravenously. The children stood around watching him. He snarled at them, his eyes widening with fear. "Come away, you make him afraid," Old Mother said. But the children were unable to stay far away until the fish was cooked and Tikek called them to come and eat. When they went to look at him after the meal, the puppy was asleep. "Now leave him and let his wound mend," said Old Mother firmly as all three crouched beside the puppy and Imai tentatively stroked his head. Now I would like you to pause this video and draw this image of all of them together sleeping with the puppy. Maroo seized her advantage. "Tell us a story, Old Mother," she begged. The younger children immediately began to clamor for a story too, and even Arag and Vorka joined in. Everyone loved a story. So as the night deepened and the stars came up, cold and bright, they huddled close together around the fire and listened. Maroo's gaze was fixed on Old Mother's face as she began. Old Mother was very old, her skin like soft, creased leather. Her cheeks collapsed inward over teeth that were worn flat from chewing hides to soften them. Only her eyes were still young, not filmy like some of the old men's, but dark and bright as a knife. The story she told was one about the time when gods walked the earth. After the Great Mother, Oma, had given birth to the lesser gods of the great ice. Last of all had come Ptarmigan, and she was the cleverest of all the gods. There were many tales of her cunning, and Old Mother told one that they had all heard many times before. How Ptarmigan outwitted Wolverine. Maroo was pleased. She loved these stories because her own name meant Little Ptarmigan. When the story was over, the children went to look at the puppy. It was still asleep, but its legs were twitching. "He's chasing the dream hare," Old Mother said. End of chapter 4. Now, I would like you to go to your assignment and answer the questions.